Hey, Sub here. Wanted to touch base on a topic that is kind of hot in the community right now. But I want to approach it from the point of view, like from the business point of view, right? Like the actual nuts and bolts of software development, right? And how things get done for on the back end. And that issue is actually going to be skill based damage, or allegedly, should it exist, right? And kind of ask the question of, from a business standpoint, how would how would you go about justifying creating something like this? So, what skill based damage is, for anybody who's not familiar with that, is essentially every now and again someone will be shooting another player, and the bullets don't seem to do enough damage. They don't register. They feel like they should have killed that player, but that player is able to turn around and kill them. And when you look at it, you appear to see a lot of bullets landing, or should be landing, but they're not. Right, the game doesn't register it, but they register the other players just fine. So one of the great theories that has come of this is that there is a secret system that evaluates players in the game in real time and determines ahead of time who's going to win an engagement. Um, and then it, reduces the effectiveness, or eliminates damage completely, of one player, and allows the other player to either escape or come away victorious in the gunfight. So the thing that you have to do is step back for a minute and kind of ask the question from a business standpoint. Now, a lot of us are familiar with the other skill based issue in the game called skill based matchmaking, or matchmaking as the game devs called it. Um, and that is something that is very real. And we were able to identify that very early. We being, a number of high end content creators who did a lot of analysis and did a lot of work kind of hammering out what this thing is, uh, verify that it exists. We're able to test for it, design parameters for it, and then kind of prove it exists. And it got to a point the company fessed up and admitted that it was real, and has gone through a couple of blog posts, which, you can uh, take or leave or have that conversation elsewhere. But the reality is, this was a system that was designed and built and launched, and was very real. Now, so the question is, why can't this happen in other ways? And there's a lot of technical reasons why it's unlikely to exist, but I want to talk about it from a business standpoint. Okay. And I'm going to look at two systems in place, both the skill based matchmaking system and the Ricochet system, the damage mitigation system from Ricochet. And I'm going to look at those. And we're going to look at those from a development, a business of development standpoint, and we're going to have a conversation about how those would be justified in the boardroom versus this skill based damage system, and how that would look in the same boardroom. Okay, so what do I mean by how it would look in the boardroom? Well, whenever you're going to create something from a development standpoint, it costs money. All right, and it costs money in a lot of ways that people don't usually think about. So not only do you have um, the actual hourly wage of the developers who work on it, right? You have product managers who have to manage it and work on it from the top level down. You frequently have designers who have to be pulled in, and they have to work on it, and they have to lend support. It has to be documented, so you need people that can document how it works for future people to work on it. So that all has to be drawn up. If it's user facing, right, there's a lot of design and other aspects that go into it. But at the end of the day, there has to be something, even if it's on a back end. There's some mechanics and visuals that people have to be able to access in order to adjust things, right, and to improve it going forward. It just is. So if somebody's going to make a tool, right, for example, a tool um, to set up matchmaking in such a way that the highest number of people come away satisfied with their game, win or lose, that they feel like in the minds of a developer aren't being blown out, they aren't being driven out of the game by facing players higher skilled than them. Um, then they might come up with an idea of, let's have a system in place, and that system, will control the matchmaking experience so that people have, as close to even a chance to win the game as possible. You can agree or disagree that that's a good thing, but that's likely what happened is they sat down and said, "Oh, let's design a system that does it." And then on top of that, they have to now justify the cost of that. So a system like skill-based matchmaking that touches so many different factors and is so complex is probably about a $2 or $3 million system at the end of the day. That includes dev time, that it includes um, management time, that improves the higher ups that have to sit down and have their wrap their heads around it and have their input, and that's their time. But it's also taking those assets, those people, away from other projects, right? So the time that you spend on a tool or a product is time you're not spending on another tool or another product, right? So if you are a developer or a QA person or a product manager, um, and you are spending time on this experimental project, for example, you're not spending time on a project on fixing a project that already exists, that is going to make money. You're not pushing forward a different project that could also make money, right? So there are losses in that, right? So not only is there cost in terms of the actual time you spend, there's costs that exist in terms of the time you're not spending on other things. Okay. So all of that compounds together into a total cost for the product. And if it's not a customer facing project, then there's less cost and it's a little bit easier because you don't have to create all the customer facing things, but you still need developer access tools and other stuff and documentation and all this other stuff that goes into it. So if it for a strictly back-end tool, of this complexity and nature, $2-3 million is not an outrageous amount to budget for it. So with that being said, companies don't just hand out $2 or $3 million at a time on a whim. You have to actually create a cost benefit analysis, create a whole system, a whole spreadsheet, basically a whole financial report detailing what you're going to do and how what you are going to do is going to create money for the company. And that could be either the company is going to be more efficient at something, in which case, that's money saved. So that offsets the cost, right? It can also be creates a new product that the company can sell. Or in the case of skill-based matchmaking, right? It is a system that enables you to increase the customer satisfaction and customer spend at a predictable rate. Okay. That would have been the argument that, hey, players, and they have tons of data from previous games with loot boxes and whatnot that says, hey, we are able to retain players, and at the rate, per 100,000 players we retain, we earn X number of dollars through microtransactions. And so as they go through this process, they're going to have a very detailed expectation of, we put X number of dollars into the system, it's going to yield Y number of dollars in return. And here's how we will measure that over time. And when things don't work, right, they get scrapped. So for the fact that SBMM is still here and it is still as strong as ever, we can deduce that it works, that it meets or exceeds the expectations that the developers laid out to the bean counters and said, hey, it's going to make us money. Here's how it's going to do it. And the bean counters went, go for it. So let's take that approach and ask, how would this hit reg, this skill-based hit reg, make money? Okay. The question that you get is, again, a system like this, and let's keep in mind, this is a system that is as of yet been untestable. We cannot build parameters for it. We can't identify it. It is so specific in its actions, if it exists, that it appears random. It appears to affect players of all skill levels in completely unpredictable ways and unpredictable engagements, right? the number of times I've lost to a complete bot because my bullets don't seem to go where I tell them to go. Hard to count, but it's been a lot of times. And I'm not that great of a player, right? So it happens to everybody, but it doesn't happen consistently. There's no way to measure it from a player's point of view that I'm aware of. And nobody else seems to be able to offer up a way to reproduce it either. So for all intents and purposes, we've created a system. We want to create a system that is apparently random, doesn't seem to yield a observable benefit, right? So that you as a player will not know that you are benefiting from it. You only know that you're being negatively affected by it because you are unable to kill the person you're shooting at. So with that being said, how do you justify a return on that? How do you quantify a return on that for the financial department? Because again, a system like this, that's this complicated, that operates in real time and makes these decisions in real time, is going to be expensive. At least $1 million, maybe $2 million, maybe more. I'm not, I don't really know how much a system this complicated and this discrete would actually cost to build and implement. But how do you justify a return on that? How do you show that if you mitigate the damage to a random player once per game, that player will then spend money as a result? Well, it's unlikely that they're going to spend money as a direct result because they don't know what happened. They don't know they survived a gunfight because the game chose them. And because they don't know that, they don't understand that there's a benefit. But if you are on the opposite end and it is observable that you did not get the kill you were going for, then that's a negative. That creates a negative implication. There is no one that I've seen that's produced a video demonstrating that they won a gunfight because they were on the receiving end of the benefits of skill-based damage. Lots of players have showcased being on the receiving end of the benefits of skill-based matchmaking. We see that all the time with players that 2-box. They reap the benefits of a low-skill lobby, and everybody can see it. But nobody can show that they are benefiting from skill-based damage. But people can definitely show that they are on the detrimental side of it. They can show the negative effects of it, and we see that quite often online. So where's the benefit to the company? If the only press you see from that is negative, right? There's no demonstrated benefit to the receiver of it. They don't know that they are benefiting from it. There's no icon that shows up. Congratulations, you survived because of skill-based damage. It's completely random. And we also can't prove it. We can't put it in specific situations. It's not like, oh, if you're a high-skilled player and you are faced off 1v1 for the win with a low-skilled player, your bullets don't do damage. We can't prove that. We can't set, and we can set that up 1,000 times. And it has been set up 1,000 times, 100,000 times, 1,000,000 times. And there's no consistency in when it applies. So how can you justify a benefit where you can't prove the benefit exists and you can't prove the positive of the benefit? It doesn't make sense from a business standpoint. There's no money to be made off of it. The cost to create the product creates more bad will than it does benefit to the bad players, especially since they don't know that they're benefiting from it. Unlike skill-based matchmaking, where they know they're benefiting from it because they win more often, because they get more kills than they are when they are faced higher skilled players, when they play other games like X-Defiant, where they don't have skill-based matchmaking, where they don't do as well over the course of the game. It's a very simple A/B test. If you play at a certain place, a certain level at COD, and then you go to X-Defiant and you play worse than you do at COD, Skill-based matchmaking has proved its point to you. You benefit from it. And a lot of people like that because they're not great players. Which brings to the final point of the patents and Ricochet. Activision has shown that they can identify a specific player and they can take away their ability to do damage. They can give them infinite fall damage from just a few inches of drop. They can make the other enemies invisible to them. So then I go again to the business standpoint. If you're going to build such a system, can you justify its cost? The Ricochet mitigations, they have very specific ways of activating. Be caught cheating. And as somebody who is caught cheating, they're applied to you. And they're testable. They're observable by everybody. So we can all know if you are shooting someone and your bullets don't do anything, and nobody you shoot does damage, or all the players in front of you disappear, but they're still shooting you, or you step off a little step and die instantly to fall damage. We can observe that. And we can set criteria for how it activates so we can know, fall damage causes this, right? Or cheating causes this. So as a developer who has this idea and wants to go and create this system, how do you justify that to the bean counters? Well, you say, look, we're going to create a system that when we catch someone cheating, we apply a mitigation. And that means that players that are encountered a mitigated player can observe the mitigations enact, they can benefit from it. It creates goodwill. And it's free advertising when the tapes of the mitigation go viral. And we've seen that repeatedly. Someone gets caught cheating. They can't deal any damage. Other players tease them about it. And those clips get hundreds of thousands of views sometimes. Maybe a couple million, depending on what platform you're on. That's all free advertising money. It's a positive thing. It shows Activision and Call of Duty taking steps to attack cheating. And that's a good thing from the business standpoint. And they're going to attach player retention metrics, and they can attach the benefit, the financial spend benefits to retained players. And they can even measure the positive reaction of players on Twitter as they comment on it. All of those things are a benefit in the cost-benefit analysis. And when the benefit's high enough, the product gets approved. Where's the benefit of skill-based damage? As we seem to see it today, as we claim to see it today. What is the benefit to the company? I can't find any. Why build something that doesn't help the company make money? You can't be a company that only cares about making money and then spend millions of dollars on something that loses them money. It would never happen because it doesn't make sense. That's what I got for you today. I'll catch you on the next one.